Information and Accountability Committee meeting. I want to thank our Maryland State Department of Ed staff member, Matthew Duque, for preparing today's information in preparation for a full board vote, hopefully on January 23rd, Board of Education meeting. Tonight, we will review the target setting methodology aligned to the strategic plan and the draft baselines and targets for the 4 priorities and enablers. We look forward to the discussion about the metrics and we'll hold our questions until the end of the presentation to allow you to get through your slides. Thank you. We're ready to begin.
All right, great. You're able to see the slides?
Yes, I can see them.
Great, thank you. So just a quick outline of the presentation, very brief overview of the strategic plan, how we got here. I'll go through the target setting methodology and then walk through the baselines and targets by the 4 priorities, the 4 enablers, and then there were some additional metrics that kind of span multiple priorities or enablers. So in terms of the strategic plan, just as a reminder, this started a little over 2 years ago. It was conducted in 3 different phases, which culminated in passage approval of the strategic plan in June of this year. It did not include the targets, which you're about to see today, and the reason for that is because we wanted to use the data from the 2022-2023 school year, which was not available. Of course, assessments available starting in August, but we also use other data like attendance data in terms of validating and finalizing that. It's not available until the fall. Now, the methodology is a little complicated, but first off, we'll say, as I mentioned, we're using the last school year as the baseline for almost all, I say all but one measure. And then we're setting 3-year targets so that, except for that one measure, which I'll point out, the targets are for the school year 2025-2026. Now, how do we set the targets? So ideally, we start with the first sub-bullet. We use a linear trend. So we look at the prior data and apply that trend in the prior data to the baseline of last year, projected out for 3 years. It's good when it works. There are several cases where it does not. So one is if the linear trend was in decline. So if proficiency was going down in the past, we don't want to apply that trend to the baseline. We want to see proficiency go up. So one way around that was, instead of using a trend, we just took the highest pre-pandemic rate and applied that as a target. Another case where that doesn't quite work, the linear trend doesn't work, is it might have produced an unambitious target. So say over 3 years, it only produced a 1 percentage point increase, and that's not something we should strive for. So other way around that is we took the highest 1-year growth and we applied it for 3 years. And another way was specifically for proficiency rates. We used the ESSA, Maryland State ESSA plan methodology, which was to take the non-proficiency rate and cut that in half over the next, now would be 8-9 years until 2032. Now, there's the other case where prior data was not available, or even some of the 4 or 5 methods I just went through did not produce a reasonable target. So I think this only happened in maybe one case, but we had to set a target that was ambitious but feasible. But we tried as much as possible to stick to an evidence-based target. And I'd just like to recognize Kyle Ashley, researcher in the office, for all his tireless work on going through all of these data and different possibilities. With that, let's look at the baselines and targets first for their priorities. So priority 1 is ready for kindergarten, with the goal being increase in percentage of kindergarten students that score at the demonstrating readiness level on the KRA. The baseline for the last school year was 41.1% of students. And We extrapolated the increase from 2022 to 2023, which was 4.8%, apply that for 3 consecutive years and arrive at a target of 55.4% for the 2025-2026 school year. For priority 2, which is ready to read, our goal is to increase in percentage of grade 3 students that score at or above proficient on the grade 3 ELA assessment. Our baseline in 2022-2023 was 48%. We extrapolated the increase from 2022 to 2023, which was 2.2 percentage points. And assuming that for each of the next 3 years, we arrive at 54.7% as a target. Priority 3 is ready for high school. And for that, our goal is to decrease the percentage of grade 8 students that meet one or more of the ABC indicators, which are attendance, behavior, and course failures. So here's where we want to see a decline. We based on the lowest rate prior to the pandemic. So we see our baseline going from 46.8% of students to 32.1% of students over 3 years. Priority 4 is ready for college and career. Our goal is to increase the percentage of high school graduates who met the college and career readiness standard and completed a pathway. A few caveats to this. One is we do not have graduation data finalized yet. That should be, I believe, in January. So we're using students at the end of grade 12. Also, we're using the interim standard, and that could very well change. So we will recalculate it if and when that happens. So this is based on the test standard of meeting proficiency in ELA and math, high school assessments. And then third, we don't have all data on pathways. Some are not completely finalized yet in terms of what a pathway looks like. So these are calculations are 28.8% in 2022, 2023, the percent of students at the end of grade 12 from last year that had met the standard. Based on the average of rates in 2019, 2020, and 2021, we arrive at a target of 36.5%. The next section, we're going to look at the enablers. Now, enabler 1 is very different. It doesn't have a numerical metric. So this is around high quality data reporting, and the goal is to make available relevant data reports and high quality tools to families, educators, and other stakeholders. So our baseline is that, so we currently have Maryland Public Schools website, we have MD report card, where our accountability results are, as well as individual student reports for the assessments. And our target is to continue to increase availability of timely, relevant, high quality data reports and tools. Enabler 2 is to be determined. The enabler is around the goal for enabler is to increase the percentage of schools visited by the expert review teams that are rated in the highest category in curriculum instruction and integrated multi-tiered system of supports indicators. As you know, the review team visits began not long ago, so we do not have a baseline. This is the one. Since our baseline will be this current school year, we'll project that target out for 2 years to match all of the other metrics. So that target will be 2025, 2026. And we can expect to do that next year once we have data from the expert review team visits. Enabler 3 is around the teaching profession. We have 3 goals. The first is to increase the percentage of new teachers of color. For that, you see the baseline last year was 43.3%. We project a target of 47.8%, and that's based on the data trend going back to 2011. The second goal is to increase the percentage of teachers retained over a 3-year period. And again, using data trend going back to 2014, because we need those first 3 years of data to establish the baseline. We projected the baseline 76.5, increasing to 78%. The third goal is to increase the percentage of teachers eligible for the teacher leadership track. The baseline last year was 2.5%, and our target based on trend data of just a few years is 5.8%. Enabler 4, on supporting students socially and emotionally. Our goal is to increase the percentage of schools perceived as having a favorable learning environment. And this is based on the Maryland School Survey students' responses. Just a note there on the slide, the bullet points, the school survey includes multiple topics around safety, environment, as well as relationships, both between students and teachers. We have the baseline broken out by school level because you can see there's a very big difference between elementary, middle, and high. So we see increases at elementary from about 55% to almost 62%, middle from about 5% to 9%, high school from 6 to 7%. Enabler 4 also includes a goal of decreasing the suspension rate. So based on the lowest pre-pandemic rates, we set targets to decrease the suspension rate at elementary level from 1.5 to 1.1%, from middle 10.5% to 7.9%, and high school 7% to 5.9%. Now that covers the enablers. We have a few additional metrics. So we have a few around low performing schools, and here we're defining them as schools that are identified as CSI, or comprehensive support and intervention schools, the low performing category. The goal here is to reduce the percent that are re-identified in the next identification 3 years later, which is the window of their support from the state. So our baseline is really looking at the previous cohort that was identified in 2019. And 81% of them were re-identified, meaning that 19% exited CSI status completely, not just low performing. They did not end up in ATSI or any other category. We're setting the target at 60% for the current cohort. Also, for low performing schools, we want to follow their achievement. So ELA and math, and it's broken out by school level. And in this case, so I won't read every number, but this is where we had to apply the ESSA, Maryland's ESSA methodology for increasing and setting targets. So the methodology again is to take the not proficiency percentage and cut that in half by 2032. So that projects much higher, at least based on the baselines of proficiency rates here. The last metric for low performing schools is to decrease their chronic absenteeism rates. Again, we broke it out by school level because there's a big difference for between high school, elementary, and middle. And based on the 2018-2019 chronic absenteeism rates for CSI schools, the previous cohort came up with targets of shown here on the right for 25, 26. Then the last metric is for all schools across the state. We are following, broke it down to two cohorts. We want to follow cohort students from 3 to 8, but we're doing 2 so we fit in the 3-year time span. So first cohort goes from grade 3 to grade 6. And again, based on the cutting the non-proficiency rate in half from the ESSA plan, we see ELA baseline 47.9 and the target 56.6% by grade 6. Math 40%, grade 3 baseline increasing to 50%. And then the second cohort are the 2 boxes on the right. So moving from grade 5 last year to grade 8 in 2025-26. See ELA increasing from 41.7% to 51.4%, and math from 27% to almost 40%. So that covers all of the baseline targets. In terms of next steps, these are all annual data, so we'll track them each year as they come in, probably around the same time of year. As we noted in the strategic plan, when it's appropriate, we'll disaggregate the data in different ways, including by LEA, by schools, specifically low-performing schools, and student groups, demographics, race, gender, economic disadvantage, students with disabilities, and English learners. So with that, I'll stop. I'm happy to take any questions, any feedback.
Thank you. We appreciate it, and thank you for moving through the comprehensive explanation of the metrics and how they were created. So if you don't mind, I'll go last. And because Susan's in the airport, I just want to make sure. Susan, did you have any questions? Because I know you're on a time frame. You're on mute. Let's see if she can find them. You're still on mute. All right, so this is what I'll do. I'll come back to Susan. And I'll move on. Does anyone else have any questions? I have a few, but I'll wait and go last.
Sure.
Thank you,
There.
Nick.
Of course.
Oh, wait,
Hi,
Susan's
Susan.
got it off. Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead,
right.
Susan. Did you have any questions?
Yes. Okay, let me get to the right place. I think I have two comments. My first comment is on the Ready for Kindergarten. I will continue to state in every meeting we have about Ready for Kindergarten that to use this measure simply as a Ready for Kindergarten is underutilizing this assessment. If we ask the kindergarten families where care occurred the year before kindergarten, we would have an opportunity to share the information with the child care and the early childhood division at MSDA, because and figure out where to improve the prior care to kindergarten in curriculum and other things that are oversighted by our staff. So that's one thing I'll never understand, why we don't use the KRA to improve readiness, not just measure it. My second comment is on priority 3, Ready for High School. A lot of the priorities or enablers are divided into multiple measures. And for this one, we don't have 3 measures for 3 items, and I don't know why. How are we measuring attendance, behavior, and courses into one percentage?
So we can break that out, and provided the reasoning behind combining that is the research shows if students fall into any of those categories, they are less likely to be prepared for high school. It's not that they need to be in all of them. So you'll see maybe lower percentages for each. But collectively, if a student just meets one of those, attendance, behavior, or course failures, they are deemed at risk. It's predictive of them not succeeding at the next level. But we can break those out and give the percentages for each.
I think it would give us more information on where we need to focus and what part of those 3 things is not improving and where we need to be heavy hitters.
Okay, great.
And hey, Matthew, if you don't mind me calling you Matthew.
Sure.
Maybe to me, Board Member Gaddy's comment about the Ready for Kindergarten, would it be possible to while I see the target here, but eventually to be able to disaggregate the data for students who were in an early childhood program and those that were not, so that then you could see the impact and effect of what the early childhood support looks like for those who are in a structured program that we support and those that are not.
Yeah, let me go back and check on the availability of that data.
Okay. Because that might help Board Member Gaddy with what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, we particularly need to know the public school pre-K program, and it should be the highest readiness of all programs in Maryland because it's a direct link to us and our oversight.
So if
Okay.
you could check on that, that would be helpful.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Goldstein. Okay, I'm done.
Thank
Thank
you. All right, now Nick, you could go. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Mr. Duke, thank you. Duque, sorry. Thank you for the presentation. This is really helpful. Couple of thoughts. So on priorities 1 through 4, I don't particularly mind the metrics the way that they're set, but one of the things I'm wondering is it possible to have, or should we have actually, I would just say it this way. I encourage us to have the targets broken out by subgroup, disaggregated. Part of the reason is because we can let certain subgroups hide in the numbers if we have an increase with one particular subgroup over another. I know that we're going to report it disaggregated, which is one thing, but I'd like to be on the record as a board as saying that we want all students to improve here, not just some. So to what degree we can do that, I know it complicates it a little bit and probably, increases the number of slides, but that would be a thing I'd like to see us do. I don't know if we need to discuss that at all or just move on to the next one. All right.
Did you have, you want to just record that, Mr. Duquesne, and then we'll keep going.
Yeah, cool.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. And then the other note I had, so enabler 1, slide 13, I have 2 key points. The first one, I don't really like targets that don't have numbers. It's like a personal thing, maybe, I don't know. But I'm wondering, did you all explore click rates, download rates, usage rates of some of those tools and some of those spaces where we could see an increase or a usage at all?
Which slide are you
What would it take to do
referencing?
that? Slide 13.
Thank you, because I think I
Yeah.
put that in my notes.
Yeah.
Yep. I put that too.
Yeah. So I don't know, Mr. Duque, did you all explore an idea there? Is there a way that we can do that? Is there something we can do to get some numbers around this?
We did not discuss that. I can look into if that's feasible.
Yeah, I think it's worth just trying to figure out. I know it's tricky, and I understand what you all are saying and what you're trying to do. I understand what we are trying to say and what we're trying to do, and I agree with it. I think we just want to be able to measure something here to understand, are people taking this up and using it?
Okay.
The second part, I feel a little bit more passionate about. The way that this is written, it's written, same slide 13. It's written in a way that I don't think has enough specificity of what the tools are going to be used for. And I hear time and time again as a parent member that parents specifically don't have they have the data they need, but they don't know what to do with it. And they don't know how to put it in action for their young people at home and want to help and support from home, but don't quite know how. And so what I would really implore us to do here is to shift the language of the target slightly that incorporates some of that specificity. So I don't be a person who just says, go figure it out. I figured I would start with a straw person that we can pick apart. I figure if I put it in chat, let's see, there you go. And then I'll read it. So keep the target the way it is, continue to increase the availability of timely, relevant, and high quality data reports and tools. And then I add specifically aimed at providing practitioners and caregivers with actionable steps to support improved learning outcomes or actionable items or something like, and I can't call out caregivers here alone because I know that we're also talking about these resources being used by practitioners across the ecosystem of education. So I didn't want it to be just about caregivers, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because I hear this from parents a lot, that they just need a way to engage with their young people and to put that data into action. Helping young people to read at home is really important and critical to parents, and they want to be able to do it and they want to know how to do it the best way. Same with math, same with science, same with really everything. So that's my suggestion. We can workshop that a little bit here if we want to, but that's the first part, or first attempt, I should say. Okay. Thoughts, comments, jokes? No. All right. Cool. Okay. Next one. And last one for me, slide 16. So when we talk about the students, supporting students socially and emotionally, I'm looking at the high school number, and I understand the methodology that you all used to create the increases. I have a hard time believing that 6.4 to 6.9 is a ambitious target. And I don't know what methodology we used here. I imagine that it was a low increase in the year previous, and so you're extrapolating that. But I just don't think that 0.5% is ambitious. Maybe it is, given that it's a small enough number over the overall percentage, but I'd like to see an increase higher than that. And I'd like to push us to think a little bit differently about that one in particular. I don't know if there are others. I don't even know if 0.5% or 0.4% is statistically relevant given the sample size, which I don't quite know what it is, but.
And I know I didn't want to go yet, but this was one of the slides I made a comment on too. And I noted middle and high, I thought were not,
Also,
the targets I think were just too low.
yeah.
So if we could go back and look at middle and high, I know you highlighted high, but I thought middle as well.
That's great.
Okay. All right.
Great.
Thanks.
Those are the bevy of my comments. I don't know, Mr. Duque, if you have a methodology note for how we arrived at stuff on 16, at the targets on 16. But
Yeah, so that one we looked at, so keep in mind, we've only had the survey for, this is the third year. So not counting the baseline we had in 2019 and 2022.
Yep.
So with the pandemic in between, it was hard to trust the increase, decrease. There was an increase from 2019 to 2022. That's what it was based upon. I agree completely, especially high school is not large. I think we're out of data in terms of basing the target on. So we could increase it, but it would be random. So we were trying to avoid that, but certainly that's an option.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation.
Yeah, that's helpful to know. And
I still think it's still low. So
agreed.
this one, I just feel like maybe then we got to come up with a random target. That's just a thought.
Right. We should push here, I think. And I'm remiss, Dr. Duque, I don't want to take away.
Oh, and I'm sorry too. I should have said that.
Apologies.
Matt is fine, or Matthew.
Yeah, I understand, but I should get this right.
Thank you, Nick. I think you said that was your last question or comment. Okay.
Yeah, that
perfect.
was it.
And then I see Chin came off of mute. So I know you have some questions
Yes,
or
I
comments.
yeah, thank you, Dr. Gostin, boss, calling me. Yeah, my question is, our comment is related to slide 16 too, about the percentage that I heard Dr. Duquesne say about if it's less than or within the 1% of a margin, there would not be, kind of significant, even with the high school students, maybe the sample size was not that big or whatever it's in the background that we cannot really judge it by the percentage. But I would just say, if it's less than 1%, it could be a concern that we can shoot it higher. Even we need to do some projection model to come up with the target number. And the other thing is about the priority 1 to 4 with the targeted the year is 2025 to 2026. And I know we based on 2022's data. And in between, I know there's still 2 years of leap. How are we going to kind of be able to identify if we are going through the turbulence kind of spinning around, not proceeding, not progressing progressing toward our goal or target, and what are the methodology that we will measure it differently, or come up with something more approachable. That is one thing. And then in enabler number 4, there is a, let me pull up my slide number enabler 4. Okay.
Slide 16.
No, that's 17 on mine. Is it right?
Yep, it is. It's 16 and 17.
Oh, okay. Yeah, again, the high schooler, the social emotional learning, 7.0 to 5.9. Is this the old one or something? Yeah, it's kind
That
of,
one is for, that one's for discipline. Decrease in suspension rate, and enabler 4 on the previous page was about favorable learning environment.
the favorable. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, safe learning environment. Yeah, so this one, with decrease of 1.1. Yeah, it is kind of margin too. So we can look at that along with the slide number 16 together. And then I have a comment.
And that one, before you go to the next one, I think that one for the elementary is because the number or percentage of students who are suspended at the elementary level is so low.
Right.
I think that sample size is indicative of why the percentage is so low, if I'm correct, Dr.
Yes,
Duque.
so part of the elementary story is there is a ban on suspending students from pre-K to 2.
Mhm.
So a good portion of them just can't be suspended. And of course, behavior is different in elementary. Suspension is different because, like, without a ban, there's, I don't want to say like a natural level of suspension, but it's not like proficiency where we just keep growing, expected to keep growing in the same way. So
Yeah, the ban contributes to the low number, is really what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, that's understandable for elementary school students. Yeah, perfect. And then I have one more questions, or 2 more, I should say. Yeah, for slide number 20, slide 20, when we are looking at the baseline ELA on the elementary to increase in 3 years from 9.4 to 24.5%. While we're looking at the math, that from 3.6 to the 2025 of 19.7. Oh, I might answer to my question. Yeah, we are comparing ELA and math. I thought it's kind of similar. No, I'm sorry. We can skip
And he's
this
showing the growth. They're showing the growth from grade 3
one.
to grade 8, I think. Yes. Okay.
Right.
slide 20 specifically looks at low performing schools. So it would be all grades.
Oh, okay.
You're right. Thank you. That was
Yeah.
another slide.
That's why the baselines
Thank
are so
you.
low, but
Thank you. Yeah, that's why I compared slide 20 and 22. I just say, how come there was so much gap? Yeah, all right. Thanks for pointing that out. Appreciate it. That would be all from me.
sure.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I have a few questions. Is the assumption that every 3 years the targets will change and won't be a linear progression? So let me frame it. So for example, for slide 8, for 2025-26, the target is 55.4. So is it safe that, okay, they hit that, then you'll come back to the table, to the team, and then now come up with a new target, or is the expectation is we'll go with this 14.3% increase now every year, 3 years? What's the assumption?
I think that part of that is up to the board. Certainly, I think we would want to come back to see, did we hit that target? Did we fall short? Did we exceed it? Part of that can tell us, was the target reasonable and that annual growth, but also, realize when we get higher and higher, it's going to be probably more difficult. We're going to hit like a asymptote of sorts,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
That, so I think that's something we come back and look at in 3 years.
Got it. I would say in the presentation to the whole board that that's set up front. Because if you follow the pattern that's here, I mean, it would be, let's hypothetically with, I mean, taking out lots of other factors, it would be like 2035 before we got into the 90s. If we looked at the target that's on slide 8. So it's 2023 now. We're talking about 13 years from now. Like, we really can't, we just got to be clear that we have to assess our growth. And in some areas, we may need to increase that trajectory. And in others, we fall short, add some additional supports and still keep moving forward with the target. So I just think it's helpful to say it up front. I wouldn't want anyone who just pulls the PowerPoint down when we get to the January meeting to believe that, okay, I'm just going to extrapolate this data and figure out where I got to be to get up into the 80s or even 90s. And we're saying it will take us 10 years to get to the 80s for most of these. Some would take even longer than that.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to be honest up front on that. The next one I had was around, thank you for the slide 13, around the data pieces and the accessing the measures. On the slide 15, which was elevating the teaching profession, what I put here was I would be interested in knowing for goal 1, where it says an increase in the percentage of new teachers of color. I would hope that what we would want is a state that's representative of the student demographics that we have. So it's hard to be able to model that if we don't have right in front of us what that student demographics looks like. And then to be able to have the student demographics next to the teacher demographics so that we're getting there. So I say this to say, it could be, I don't have it in front of me, that the student demographics for children of color is 47.8%. And if we get that target in 2025, 26, then technically our target, our teaching staff mirrors our students. That's not the case, then we at least know what we're trying to aim for. So I just think it would be helpful to have the students' demographics there. Because I am making the assumption, but I would believe that we would want our teaching staff to look like our students. I just don't know that because I think we'll get to a point where people will be asking, well, what is the ideal number or percentage that we're aiming for new teachers of color? And then, we don't want it to be so lopsided.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
because we're not aiming for 100%, I'm sure. You were going to say something, Nick?
Maybe not. I'm gonna offline on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then on the number 2, the increase in the percentage of teachers retained over a 3-year period. My question was, I just felt like the percentage was too low. Like it's only a 1.5% increase. And we would want retention. We want our teachers to stay. And
So that was my first reaction too.
Okay, great. Then I'm not by myself. Okay, go ahead.
But I think we need to think about it a little differently because it's over a 3-year period. If a teacher isn't retained in the first year, they fall out of the percentage. So it's not necessarily a snapshot like the proficiency rates. So we're actually tracking the same cohort. So 1.5 is, I won't say it's large, but we can't, I don't think it's quite right to say that's 0.5% each year, because it's not, it wouldn't increase, it could only decrease each year.
Question. Is the assumption that if you've been here for 3 years, you're gonna stay for 30?
No, but I think it's based on the research that the highest attrition rates are in the early parts of the teacher career, 3 to 5 years.
Got it.
So if
So if
we
it's-
can, especially align with the blueprint and the induction programs, teacher prep rigor being increased and so forth, making teachers stay for the first few years.
So if the research is 3 to 5, would we go back and look at this goal as 3 to 5? I mean, I'm not trying to change the goal. I guess I could see the 3.
Right.
We
I
could
hear you. I
definitely-
guess also the limitation is we're setting 3-year targets, so we can only really
Got it.
hit a
Okay.
3-year.
That makes sense. Okay. That works for me.
Also, like I think it's a little better than a 1-year, which we normally look at, teachers from year to year, because it's a little more stable, right? Especially if the pandemic was extreme, but we saw that retention increase and then drop off. So this 3 years will provide a little more stability.
Got it. Okay. I appreciate it. And then the last one on this page, goal 3, the increase in the percentage of teachers eligible for the teacher leadership track. I just felt the percentage was low. Like we just only want 5.8%. We're not saying that because they're on this leadership track that they're going to leave the classroom. Why wouldn't we
Right.
want the percentage to be a little bit higher? Because we know that those who lead tend to also make a positive impact on the students in their classroom as well. I mean, not that they don't make a great impact with those who are not, but if you're the
Sure.
department chair, you're leading, you're on a track, you kind of get a different view.
So I think there's 2 considerations for that. Like it is a 3 percentage point increase, but it's actually doubling it. So we're talking about twice as many teachers. The other part is this is based on the National Board Certification. So I know that's still, from my understanding, getting ramped up in terms of implementation across the state and the support systems and whatnot. So that could be in this 3-year period, contributing to that.
So you said it's aligned to the National Board Certification because we probably have we got the largest number of nationally certified teachers in the country, correct?
I'm not sure about that, but yes, the eligibility for the leadership track is mostly based on National Board Certification.
Okay, so yeah, I'll go back and look at our state statistics in comparison. I can tell you in a previous district that I worked with, we have the largest number of nationally board certified teachers in the state. So I can't imagine that data doesn't help to skew this towards a positive, larger percentage, knowing that district happens to be large. So I appreciate that. I did want to make a comment on slide 19, which is the metrics for the low performing schools goals. I just wanted to say thank you for the large percentage decrease. It was a 19% decrease in 3 years. And I just wanted to say thank you. I thought that was one that represented what ultimately we want to happen and at a pace of which we need it to happen. Like if we don't have the luxury of slow walking
Sure.
the success that we need in low performing schools.
And hopefully,
Go
hopefully we
ahead.
see that. But
I'm hoping we can too. Doc, I hope so too. And then the last one I put on here was how are the targets shared with local education agencies? Because all of these targets aren't obtainable if the districts don't execute the work at their level. So if they're not aware of what it is that they're expected to do, and how their data contributes to the overall piece, or the overall target, then it's difficult. They're like shooting in the dark. So what's the plan for LEA notification? And is there any technical assistance, or not necessarily technical assistance, but even disaggregated down to the district level that says, look, the target for goal 4 for college readiness is 36.5, but where you are to get to that target, you've got to jump 30% to help to get to and contribute to what we need to get to the 36.5.
Yeah, so we're discussing that internally with communications. I think not just to LEAs, but to the public at large. That's, we have a website, we can do some publications, social media. We have a number of options. We're working through those.
And for sure, any plans that we have LEAs submitting that are connected to making sure that they're implementing strategies at their local level that are aligned to the strategic plan should also align to these targets as well, so that we're all on the same page.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Right. I think those are all the questions I had. Chin Chin, did you have something else? I noticed you unmuted. Did you have something else you wanted to contribute?
Yeah, I think earlier you mentioned about the slide 15 for the goal number 1 in the enabler, number 3. I think those are defined as new teachers, as the teacher that's than 1 year of experience. So with the comparing the student demographic really doesn't kind of compare
Oh,
with
you're
the
right, because
target.
it's only identifying new teachers, and that might have been what Nick was getting ready to say. So, so let me ask this question now. Why is it just targeting new teachers? And so then only reason I pause is because now I went to this one statement here. New teachers are identified with teachers with less than 1 year of experience. So what if a person of color transfers to Maryland from the District of Columbia or Virginia? So technically they're new to Maryland. Why wouldn't we get credit for attracting that person to us? But now that we've defined it as teachers with less than 1 year of experience, now it makes the data significant.
So let me double check, but I think they would be counted. But the thinking overall is if you want to increase the proportion of new teachers of color, right, you're going to get more, what did I say? There's more potential in changing the distribution with new teachers than, right, trying to attract teachers from elsewhere that are already 5-10 years in. Certainly that's a possibility, and it's looking towards the whole teacher pipeline. So diversifying ed prep programs and even going back to high school, and it's how students think about becoming a teacher. So
that makes sense from a pipeline perspective.
Mhm.
Yeah, that does.
We're
That
talking
makes
about
sense.
like the turnover of teachers every year is probably we'll get most bang for a buck in terms of moving this metric from the new teachers.
I get it. So thank you for that, Chin Chin. But now that still makes me say I'm still interested in what our state student demographics is and what our current is. And now that makes our current staffing demographic, but now that makes me interested in, that's why this second metric is so important, because you could bring them in, but if they don't stay,
Exactly.
then the first one it won't matter if they're not staying. So 1 and 2 are somewhat intertwined.
Exactly.
And I just feel like we could still potentially meet this target if the new weren't so defined and new. I understand the pipeline piece, that helps. It's very good. But I think we also want to attract some people. We're in a situation where we can get employees from other states. And I'm sure we could get some from other states like around DC or Virginia that love to come to Maryland, and that could help with this. So thank you for that, Chin Chin. Just my thoughts. All
Yeah.
right. Did you want to add
So
something else too?
Yeah, so it would not be saying we're in competition between different counties, right? The teacher will travel from one county to another. They would not be considered in that bucket. Am I correct?
No.
Not in this
Okay.
overall state, but when we break it out by LEA, you would see that if that's a.
Mhm.
Yeah, and see that, and now I'm with now I also want us to be cautious that we're not creating that we're not creating a mechanism where districts feel they've got to meet this target by taking them from robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of theory. So I appreciate the metric at the state level. I don't necessarily know that this is one that we would want to disaggregate at the LEA level, because then it does do that. Like if I'm being rewarded for having an increase in the percentage of color as a teacher, but now let's hypothetically say the district next to me is now got a decrease. And when you really start to disaggregate that data, you find out, oh, I'm being rewarded because I took them from that person. Like it then creates, an issue.
Well, so a little bit. I think I'm going back to your point earlier, Monica, about wanting to see the demographics of the students side by side here. And that's going to be obviously different from LEA to LEA.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at the teacher population, I would want to encourage the teacher population at the LEAs to look like the student population as much as it can in which they're teaching, not the state overall, which is actually where my comment began.
Oh, I got you.
Because
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the whole state, it is demographically different from LEA to LEA. And I think it's going to be difficult for us to do that, though I think this point is laudable. And I want to make sure it's not missed, because there are not enough teachers of color nationwide, let alone in Maryland, right? And I do think that it's important that we have a point that is going to, or that we challenge ourselves to increase this percentage across the state. But I also do think I don't want to hold LEAs to this, but I do think it's an important challenge for them to be attracting teachers that do look like their students. For representation matters, as well as we know that students of color perform better with teachers that look like them. And so the only question I have, Dr. Duque, this conversation made me start to think, when we say of color, do we mean all teachers but white?
Yep, it has that definition at the bottom of the page.
All right, I missed
it
that.
does.
That's perfect. Okay, great.
Yeah.
That started to make me think also, like, looking at the demographics, what is that target that we're heading towards? And that's adding up all demographics but white. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it does have that. Thank you for bringing that up. It's in small print, but it does have it. Yeah. So that does include our Latinx staff, Asian, right?
Asian,
We know we
multiple
have
races,
to,
yeah.
right, multiple races. We've got to do better. And I appreciate having it. Having the target. I just, want to be able to look at a comparison, and Nick, you made a good point of like districts, state looks different than what happens at districts. Like I know that for a fact. And so how does that flush out for LEA? And to take into Chin Chin's point, you don't want a situation where districts are robbing Peter to pay Paul, or taking from others. Now, there's nothing like some state competition. It's but it's a little different when it's within the state. Got
That's
it.
right. That's
Yep.
right.
So if we could just look at that, just to make sure we're really clear on what this means at the local level, and what the ultimate goal is for them, because you're right.
Yeah.
But that target still could have every LEA, because we all agree they're still not enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Could I just add 2 points to Nick's point about, we look at the state level, might look different at LEA level, but certainly the student demographics we know look different at different LEAs. But then even you need to take that down to the school level or the classroom level, because we know there's students and teachers are different. But I think the point here is having it as a target at the state level can be powerful, right? Draw attention, drive some change, but at the same time, there's an incentive to meeting the target, but I don't think it's high stakes. So I wouldn't be as worried about, perverse behavior, so to speak.
Got it. I appreciate that comment.
This is a fine point, Matt. I do think it's high stakes. I want to make sure that doesn't get taken out of context. I think it's very high stakes that we have a metric that says that we should have more Black and brown teachers, or teachers of color, I should say, to use our language across the state. That's not what you were saying, but I want to make sure we don't take that line out of context at all.
High importance, yes. I meant high stakes in terms of a penalty.
Yep, I got it.
Got it. Right. Chintu, did you have anything else?
No, thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out so we can have that robust dialogue. I noticed we did have a non-committee member join, and that's Samir. So thank you, Samir, for joining. So appreciate you. I know you're not on the committee. Did you have any questions, or you're good?
No, I just wanted to listen in and learn and all that. So thank you very much for having me.
No problem. All right. Well, it is a miracle. We are 2 minutes away from 7, and I promised before the meeting started that our goal was to try to get us to 7 o'clock. I do want to thank committee members for doing your due diligence of reviewing the presentation in advance and coming to the committee with your questions already, because that does save a lot of time, and for us not repeating what one of our colleagues have said, but to say, yeah, I had that same thought, and keep moving, which has allowed us to be efficient with our time. So I want to thank you, Susan. I want to thank you for being engaged even en route back home. Samir, thank you for joining us. And Matthew, Dr. Decay, thank you for preparation in advance, because we know that this was in the books a month ago and you've taken that time to do it. And so now there is no vote. What will happen is Dr. Decay will take the comments and recommendations that we've provided to him to present to the board in the January board meeting with the targets once Superintendent Wright agrees that she's ready to move forward with them in January, and we will then present it to the board for a full vote. All right. We appreciate you. Thank you. If you have any questions, please feel free to circle back to me.
All right. Thanks for all the questions and feedback.
We appreciate you, Dr. Goldson. Thank you for running an efficient meeting.
Thank you all. Have a great holiday, and I will see you all in 2024.
It's fun.
Have a great one.
Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Yes, thanks.